So I'm taking this. Mandatory training for new federal supervisors. You know what the key word is there, right? Mandatory. How many of y'all love your mandatory training? As someone has to give people mandatory training, I feel your anger. I know what you're going through. The stick was, I got a policy passed that if you didn't show up for your year-long worth of training, we're going to remove you from your supervisory position. So that got people's attention. This doesn't tell you how angry they were. Okay, they're going to pull their people out. They're going to make their own program. We suck. We're awful and all this stuff. And it's like, hi, I'm new. This is my first day. I don't even know you people. Okay, and you're yelling at me. I'm going to be honest here. I had no plan. I had no idea. I don't know what I was going to do to improve it. I just kept saying I was. Okay, because I had to save this program, because if I didn't, then I was going to lose my job. Appreciate the introduction here. So, how many of you are currently in the federal government now? Okay, raise your hand. Okay. I was in the federal government for 17 years until about 2 years ago when I jumped out to do my consulting. And one of the things, and I loved it when they told me this at the Office of Personnel Management, you're kind of young to retire. Why don't you jump out for a while and come back in? And I love when they call you young to retire. So that's pretty good here. And I've worked at all kinds of different agencies: Office of Personnel Management, Social Security Administration, U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, which I loved a lot. Tried to stay there as long as I could. And this is where I built this training and development case study. Okay. So really quick, just kind of a quick show of hands. How many of y'all have heard of return on investment? Okay. And the version I want to be talking about is Phillips ROI, return on investment. So if you're familiar with that, if you're in training and development, you probably heard of Kirkpatrick and how they do an evaluation. And Phillips is kind of like the competing evaluation system. And the thing they do with that is that they use that to work with projects and such. So yesterday, if you were here yesterday, I gave a 4-hour talk about ROI, using it in projects and how to manage, projects there. And that's what I use for this, okay? So what I'm showing you on the PowerPoint, it's kind of like on Facebook. Anyone here on Facebook anytime, Okay, so on Facebook, everything looks great and wonderful. Some of the stories behind the scenes I did not put on the slide, okay? So I'm going to tell you the real truth here. But what we're going to talk about is how return on investment supports planning and what else we have here? Evaluation execution, okay? And I needed something that was methodical and that could help me support my thesis here, which was essentially, we had the supervisor certificate program. It wasn't doing well. Actually, people hated it, and I was going to improve it. And one of the people, and later on I'll talk about this, said, how do I know it's going to be improved? So I'm going to throw that question out to you. How do you know something's improved in your project? Measures, right? What else? How bad it was before. We call that baselining, right? What else? How can you tell when something is going well or bad in your project? Feedback, right. And usually what's more persuasive, the numbers or the just opinions, right? So we were trying to find something here that was just in my opinion. Now, going to talk about connecting training metrics to strategic outcomes. Many years ago, you all remember the .com era? And how much fun it was? And I was in a .com and it was a great time, and I have stock options I cannot unload unless you're interested. Okay, but I was working in companies. This is when I was introduced to the concept of vanity metrics. You all know what that means? It's metrics that sound good, that look good, but really don't tell you what's going on. One of my favorite examples, when I worked at the Office of Personnel Management, we counted communication events. I was in a small policy shop, and every time someone emailed us or phoned us, we called that a communication event. And we had lots of communication events. Now, what's missing with that? Yeah, was it good or bad communication events? Well, we didn't count that. So if someone called up and complained and yelled at us, that was a communication event, okay? And we had lots of them. Didn't really tell you the quality. So that's one of the things I want to do is talk about what kind of outcomes do you guys want? What kind of things do you want to work with, and how do your metrics help support that and improve that, all right? And then we have our practical strategies for stakeholder communication, blah, 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 and investment justification. All this basically to say is, I'm having you give me money to do something. How do I justify that you spent your money well? All right. This is the whole idea behind return on investment. You invested so much. What did you get out of it? Was it worth it? All right. This sound good so far? Sound like something you guys might be interested in? Anything you run into in your projects, right? I'm giving you all this money to do this project. How do I know it's good? Well, wait until I finish it and we'll see what happens. Okay. So this way you might give a little bit more weight along the way there. So this was the supervisor certificate program before I took it over. And the thing I don't have on the slide, I turned this down 3 times because I liked my emerging leaders program better. And the supervisor certificate program, I knew what kind of a mess it was and a disaster, and I did not want to touch it. Anyone ever been handed a project like that? Yeah, you try to run, you try to be absent that day. My boss finally just chased me down and said, "You're taking this." Okay, so I'm taking this. Mandatory training for new federal supervisors. You know what the key word is there, right? Mandatory. How many of y'all love your mandatory training? As someone that has to give people mandatory training, I feel your anger. I know what you're going through. Yes. Initial delivery, long sessions. 8 sessions, spaced apart, 8 hours, PowerPoint. Very passive PowerPoint. And our vendor said, "Oh, we have interaction. We ask them questions." Okay, well, there's the interaction for you guys. Okay. So 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 sessions of PowerPoint, 64 hours of this stuff. Anyone been through training like that? Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of a bad trainer one way because if I go to boring training, I'll fall asleep. And I've done that before on my colleagues. They get so mad. All right. Low relevance. Here's the numbers. Here's the statistics. We require, at the Patent and Trademark Office, we required every supervisor to go through this training. And they had to complete it within a year. Okay? Only 47% completed it within a year. People just stopped showing up. People stopped, coming in. They had excuses and such. So I have this requirement. Now, one of the things I did too, there was kind of a stick. There's a carrot and stick. The stick is that I got a policy passed that if you didn't show up for your year-long worth of training, we're going to remove you from your supervisory position. So that got people's attention. Yeah. I didn't want to be that mean, but I wanted to have that kind of, I can do this if you make me. Yeah. But what happened here is that we really didn't have any penalty at that time. So how many of y'all attend training that you don't have to attend? Absolutely. I know. So what I wanted to do, and this is the stakeholder feedback. Let me tell you about the stakeholder meeting I had. This was great. So at Patent and Trademark, we have the patents folks. They're about 80% of the agency. They are the ones, now, a lot of people don't know this. Patent and Trademark does not get federal funding. We make our money off our patent fees and our trademark fees. Okay, so in patent, and they'll let you know this every day, they make up 80% of our budget because they bring in the patent fees. Then trademarks brings in the rest. And folks like me in Enterprise Training Division, we don't produce money. We are revenue consumers. That's what they called us. Okay? So we had 5 training departments: Patent Training Academy, Trademark Training Group, the CIO's office. They had their own training component. I used to run something called the Global Intellectual Property Academy. That was great because it was my own little business and it was wonderful. And then I went into Enterprise Training Division, which was part of Office of Human Resources. And as Pat let me know, well, you guys, you're taking our money. We want to make sure we're getting value for it, right? So we had the supervisor training program. You were required to go to it. The first day I took this over, and I mean, it was this immediate. 5 minutes after I took this program over, I went to a meeting with the trademark training group. And this doesn't tell you how angry they were. Okay, they're going to pull their people out. They're going to make their own program. We suck. We're awful and all this stuff. And it's like, hi, I'm new. This is my first day. I don't even know you people. Okay, and you're yelling at me. Okay, so what I had to do was break that meeting back down and talk about, okay, we're going to make this program better. We're going to make it wonderful. Please stay with me for a few more rounds of this and we'll make it much better for you, right? Now, I'm going to be honest here. I had no plan. I had no idea. I don't know what I was going to do to improve it. I just kept saying I was. Okay, because I had to save this program because if I didn't, then I was going to lose my job. Okay, anyone been in that position? No. So I talked about interaction, flexibility, and all that kind of fun stuff. I wanted to improve the engagement. I wanted people to be happy in this program and want to come to it, and we increased the on-the-job effectiveness. I wanted to show that we were getting better supervisors out of it. So let me ask this real quick question. How would you measure how well a supervisor supervises? What kind of measures would you use for that? Feedback from the people. Okay, what else? Results. Okay. What else? Staff's performance. Yeah, perfect. Yes. Yeah, HR actions. I keyed on those too. I don't know why, but maybe it's because I get in trouble a lot. But with HR actions, did we get a lot of grievances, productivity? One of the beautiful things at the Patent and Trademark Office, we had an Office of Chief Economist, and they measured everything. Productivity, how good our patent examiners were at examining patents, how the trademark examiners. So I had all this data and statistics, so I can start putting measures around them. But everything you guys mentioned, yeah. Decreasing grievances, increasing employee engagement, getting our production up. Anyone ever worked at the Patent and Trademark Office? Oh yeah, so what they tell you the first day, and they say it almost every day. We're a production environment. We are a production. I heard it every day. We're a production environment. Don't mess with the production, Brantley. Okay, and that's what I had to make sure I did with my training. So we wanted people engaged, working harder, because we needed them to go through the patent applications faster than the trademark applications faster. Because why? That equals money. We want more money, right? So that's what we were doing with this. So when I built this program, that's what I wanted to do here. Now, when we take a look, and there's all kinds of ways to evaluate your projects. And the reason I'm going to argue for this, and you can agree or disagree, I don't care, but I just want you to think about this and kind of entertain this possibility. When we do common traditional project management evaluation, and I'm thinking earned value analysis, they have their place. They're not bad, but we miss some things, okay? How many of you have calculated your cost index or your schedule index for your projects? How many of you have done that, okay? And does that tell you the whole story? No? What would you like it to tell you? Yeah, how much money you left. Earned value is supposed to do that for you, but sometimes it doesn't. Where is our actual value creation? Sometimes when I look at these things, I'm thinking, where did I actually create value? What are my activities that are giving me more value? Okay. And any behavior, organizational change. One of the things we learned, and I got my PMP in 2003. And one of the things I learned is that, we were going from the hard figures to now the soft figures, teamwork, leadership, that kind of thing, because that was telling us the story behind the numbers. And have you worked on a team? Anyone's worked on a team where you delivered on time and you delivered within the budget and you got what the customer wanted, but the team almost killed each other trying to get it? Yeah, welcome to the dot-com era. That was what's going on here. So, I've worked on some teams where we did a wonderful project, but we're never going to come back again because we hated each other so much. So, some of the things we wanted to work with was how can I increase that and keep that team going? Because as a project manager, if I can get my team happy, I can keep using them for team, after project. It's people you can count on, right? Because we all know what it's like to train a whole new team. All right, so when we talk about the Phillips ROI method, there's a lot of stuff around it, but this is basically the model that I go with. This is one I work with. This is pretty simple to understand. They call it the V model. So take a look at the left-hand side, the initial analysis. So you see your projects right there. And we're going to go down this way, and then we do the measurement and evaluation, okay? So when I started putting this process into play with ours, the first thing is I looked at the payoff needs. Now, the good thing about government agencies is I don't have to make money. I just have to, zero budget, okay? I just don't have to spend more than they gave me. But actually, I did make some money, which got the finance officer really happy. Then we look at our business needs. So that's our impact objectives, okay? What is the impact on our business? So I just kind of gave it to you beforehand. What was the impact on Patent and Trademark's business when we had well-trained supervisors? You actually sum it up in one word. What's the impact? Starts with a P, has an R. Productivity, right? Talked about productivity, right? That's what we were trying to do here. This whole thing about training and learning and all that stuff, I know as a training professional, we get all excited about this stuff here, learning and all that, right? But the reason they want me to do the training and development this is a senior executives, because they want a business impact. They want it to have some payoff. In this case, they wanted more productive people. So the equation was better supervisors, better engaged employees. Better engaged employees mean more productivity, right? So I got to get that performance up. I have to have my supervisors performing well. And then I use the learning objectives there, the learning needs to help support that. And then the preference needs. Now, have you all been taking the surveys that we give you at the end? Okay. Why do you think we collect that data? Okay. I know sometimes people wonder. Because when we put on this, and this is our 12th year of putting this on, we want to make sure you're happy with the sessions. We want to make sure they work well with you. Because if you don't like training, you're not going to get these other parts here. So that's one of the things with the reaction. Are you reacting well? This is why I redesigned the supervisor certificate program. I had to get people in the door. And I got to tell you, if you're training and development nowadays, get more into the marketing literature. Most of the time, you have to market. You have to market like you're selling stuff at Amazon nowadays to get people in the training, because you get them in the training, then they pick up the knowledge, then they change their behavior, then we get the impact of the business. See how that works? Okay? So that's part of what we're doing here. So all this goes down and works back up, and you got a methodology here, and it all builds upon each other. We have these 5 levels. These are also our 5 levels: the reaction, learning, application, impact, and ROI. So I'm just going to throw that real quick. This is why Phillips ROI is different than other ROI methods, because we move beyond satisfaction scores or basic results. We really kind of delve into where are we getting that behavior change, where are we getting that impact, why aren't we getting the impact? One of the things we also want to do is we want to isolate the project's impact from other variables, okay? And what that means is we use isolation techniques. So I do this training, and our supervisors did better. I can actually have data to show that, right? Now, was it 100% my training that did that? Is anything like that 100% training? No. There's other things that may have happened, right, in between. Maybe my training was part of it. Maybe we gave our supervisors more incentives. Maybe we hired better supervisors, to begin with. We have all kinds of variables coming in there, right? So if you hear someone say this in the training and development world that, oh, my training made everything great, don't believe them, okay? At the best, I got maybe 47% to 50% of the training, or my training was 50% of why our supervisors were better. Other things, they noticed that the senior managers were watching them. How much of an impact does it have when you have the senior management watching you? Oh yeah, you're going to act a little bit better, right? And one of the things I like about Phillips is that we look at intangibles, okay? Now, in this, we try to bring it back down to some kind of monetary value. Employee engagement, I have a monetary value for that. Teamwork, I have a monetary value for it. Sometimes I have to use proxy measures. There's a wonderful book out there called How to Measure Anything. I use that a lot because sometimes, how do I measure love? Well, I'll figure it out. But, basically I have some proxy measures I can use with it. Sometimes we have the intangibles. How do we measure how do we measure teamwork? Or the idea that the team is working well together, team morale. We had a big talk about this yesterday. How do you measure morale in your organization? Exactly, right. So sometimes we use proxy measures, but we know it's important, okay? I worked in the Navy Inspector General's office for 3 years on a team where we literally hated each other. And you can tell there was a lot of, we could have done more if we just liked each other better. Anyone ever read Stephen Covey's book, Speed of Trust? Read that, it's a good one. And he talks in there about something called the trust tax. And the trust tax is essentially how much more we basically charge in one way or the other because we don't trust you. I'm going to lock my door. I'm going to have you do more paperwork. I'm going to do a CYA, file, cover your assets file, right? So that's what we're talking about here. And then we will look at benefits for project cost, okay? We're always talking about the project benefits and cost. and as we go along. Okay. How am I doing on time? Oh, no, that's too fast. Okay. So how am I doing on time? Oh, halfway. Great. So anyway, this is the Supervisor Certificate Program redesign. I'm going to let you look at that. And I want to do a shout out to a good friend of mine. She's just recently retired. And her name is Stacy Berger. She came up with this idea about this fair. Now, let me tell you about this beforehand, okay? This is one where I fell asleep. We had a day long. We had all the HR offices come in and tell you what they did. Oh, I'm equal employment opportunity. This is what I do, 10 minutes. Security guy came in. This is what I do, 10 minutes. Really, 8 hours of that. Kind of boring, right? One PowerPoint after another. This was a fair. It was a lot of fun. They had games, they had prizes and all that kind of stuff. And the best thing about this is I had measures behind that. And one of the things I did, and I called it a trivia contest, but actually I was just testing them on what they learned at the fair and how much they retained and how they used it afterwards. So if you had an employee complaint, they knew the procedures. If you had something where you needed to get more equipment for someone, you knew who to talk to in facilities, okay? I just disguised it as fun learning, all right? So the other parts here, reduce the number of PowerPoints by half. I got rid of half of them. No one noticed. No one complained. Thank goodness. And we increased the number of interactive exercises, role plays, getting up and talking. We had some really good facilitators. A little bit off here, and it's not on the PowerPoint because I don't want to admit this, but we had a real fight with our vendor because the vendor just wanted to deliver and go. And they thought, I got you PowerPoints. What else do you need from me? So I was able to get a facilitator, bent the rules a little bit by having her kind of do some extra stuff for us. So they were working through her, and then we also hired her herself. Because she was just a wonderful person. And rearranging the courses, the sequence of courses, make more sense. So all kinds of different things here. Now, I do all this, and remember that lady that asked me the first day, how do I know this is going to improve stuff? How do I know it's going to make things better? I had data. Now I have a lot of charts and stuff, and I did the level 1, reaction, basically what we call the smile sheets. How did you like the course? To what impact did it have on your training? Talk to supervisors. This gives you one example here, okay? And those numbers here are the increases in satisfaction based on these figures. Okay? So I understood the learning objectives. We have much more increase. Now, it's always good to collect the numbers here because do you see a pattern between the first cohort and the second cohort? And the first cohort, and I forgot to put the N on there for you, that was 20 folks. The other ones were 8. So I didn't get as much of an increase in my cohort 2 than I did in cohort 1, right? Now that tells me, okay, what am I doing wrong? What have we done here? What do I need to change? So it gives me an area for improvement, okay? So we had improvement, but now I needed to figure out what was going on. But the nice thing is I was showing overall improvement, which is a good thing to show to our supervisors, okay? This makes sense so far? Do you see what's going on there? Yeah. I think the one I liked best was a 50% increase on the connection between what we were teaching in the class and actually how your work went. Because one of my favorite rebellions from the students, we had a class on strategic management, okay, for supervisors. Anyone taking a strategic management class? How to build a strategy? The thing they said when we did this is that they said, I'm a supervisor. I don't get to build strategy. I just get it handed to me and I have to implement it. So why do you put me through a class on building a strategy? How about implementing this? They also said they wanted the facilitator never to come on the campus again. What? Oh, okay. Learned something about that. Yeah, so we got a better facilitator that time. So when we look at this with traditional ROI, and you may use things like the CPI, the SPI, which is all good, and there's no reason why you can't keep using it, blend it with this. I like to triangulate my stuff. But with the traditional stuff, it's just financial return only, okay? So you know how much, you're getting some money back maybe or so, but you may have something hidden in there. That may be a problem down the road. And one of the things that we talked about this yesterday with the ROI, I baked this in from the beginning. When I see the project, I want to see what my strategic objectives are And then I want to see what success measures I need around that strategic objective so that I can start talking about how am I going to collect the data on that? How am I going to validate the data on that? How does that work up? So as the project goes along, I'm collecting that data and I'm analyzing it as we go along. Anyone here ever had to kill a project? Okay, so that's what I look for. Sometimes I'm looking for, is it going to go? Is it going to make it? Because with some traditional ROI, it's not until the project crashes and burns that, okay, pull the plug on this one, we're going to get out of it. This way, I'm constantly checking. And there was a great Harvard Business Review article about, having a project killer. And I love that idea. So someone advocating, go along every once in a while and just like, here, we need to kill this. This is not getting us the return. Do we need to put any more money into it? Do we need to put any more sunk cost fallacy into it? Then we have control for external factors. I try to isolate the program effects. I mean, if the agency does something like what you did at Patent and Trademark Office, we offered a new incentive program for the supervisors. I can't claim that as part of my training, right? All my supervisors are happier now. They seem to be more engaged, but it wasn't because of that. It was another event. Similarly, if we talk about the quarantine, which I had a supervisor certificate program going through and at that time, and then we had the quarantine happen, I had depressed scores. Now, was it my training or was it the quarantine stuff? So we had to kind of isolate that. Yeah. And then all your stakeholders, finance and senior executives, all the stakeholders, customers. And what we do is we make it germane to that audience, right? Because your senior executives are interested in what in your projects? When you do your status reports to your senior executives, what are they interested in? What was it? Accomplishments, outcomes. Are you going to give us what we promised? You're going to deliver, right? What about your customers? What do they care about? Probably about the same thing, right? You're going to deliver, but they were more interested in it. What's your project team interested in? Getting it done. Exactly. Will we get out of this alive? Will we get bonuses? Yeah, exactly. So when you're talking about stakeholder expectations, I like to use the ROI to guide the decisions and not just a post-mortem analysis. So I want to basically, when I go in there and I talk to folks and I'm halfway through the project, I want to show them how it's guiding my decisions, okay? The return on investment here. And that way I can explain why I did certain things that I did, like we did the job fair. Also, with projects, how many of you actually account for what you learned during the project? I know a lot of you do lessons learned, right? Do you account for any new knowledge you have? Any new techniques you've developed? Any new concepts? That's very important there because, a lot of these projects are also great learning opportunities and a great way to learn new knowledge and how to do things, okay, to work with newer projects, right? Then more projects come down the line. And this helps you tell the story behind the numbers. So it's not just enough to say, okay, we're doing well, our project's delivering well, but here's our impact, here's what we expect to happen. So when you want to tailor a message, and one of the things I use when I do this training is a lighthouse. Because I like to have the ROI at the beginning, all the numbers and such set up, and I use this to guide by, okay? Anyone worked in a project about halfway through and you're wondering what in the world are we doing? Okay, what's the strategic objective? What are we trying to accomplish here? Yeah, I introduced folks yesterday to the idea of death march projects. Remember those? Oh yeah, someone, highest paid person's opinion in the room. There was a guy I worked with at a personnel management, a young fella. And everyone's younger than me nowadays. Anyway, he said to us, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Wouldn't it be cool if we did that? All right. That was the extent of planning. So how do I was navigating by, is it cool or not? Yeah, not the best way to do it. So one of the things I like to do here is we have our objective. We have what we're trying to accomplish here. So again, I'm going to ask you guys, when I spoke about this at the beginning, what was my objective in the supervisor certificate program? What was I doing this for? Starts with a P, has an R in it. Productivity, right. We want to increase our productivity because more productivity gives us more money. And that's why we want to have supervisors that make people happier and make them more productive and engaged. You see how that works? I've got that true north, that lighthouse. So, data visualization tips. We can run through that pretty much, but I want to give you the key takeaways here. Okay. With ROI, especially Phillips ROI, it's a bridge between project performance and strategic success. You use the 5 levels to help you drill down to the micro level in your projects, understand what you're doing in the project, why you're doing it, and how they all roll back up. Okay? So you look at your reaction, learning, impact, application, then impact, and then ROI. And then you want to make sure that aligning your projects with strategy makes investment easier. I've been on a lot of projects where we weren't really sure why we were doing or how we were aligning with strategy. And sometimes it's difficult if you worked in the federal government that you have a new administration come in and all the strategies change, right? And when you have that happen, you can either, if you want to try to save a project you're working on, say, okay, we're also aligned with your new strategy. And we're also aligned with how we can help you there. So you can work with that. And then I have data. And then we want to have clear stakeholder-specific communication to help you build the trust and drives people approval. Okay. And with that, thank you.
Check out our website, pm.umd.edu, for incredible free professional development opportunities. There you can find courses, events, articles, and more. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who might like it, because learning grows when we make it a conversation. See you in the next one.